You are being conquered right now, not by an army, not by a foreign power, but by something far more insidious, your own desire for peace. You wake up each morning and tell yourself the same lie. Once I get through this week, I will finally have some peace. Once I land this job, I can relax. Once I pay off this debt, I will breathe. You are chasing a horizon that does not exist. And while you chase it, while you plan and prepare and wait for the right moment, someone else is moving. Someone else is taking the territory you were too comfortable to claim. Someone else is building the life you keep postponing. This is not pessimism. This is mathematics. Every hour you spend in maintenance mode is an hour your competitor spends in conquest mode. Every day you choose comfort is a day you fall further behind the version of yourself you were meant to become. There is a law that modern society buried, a principle so dangerous to the comfortable class that it was erased from popular discourse. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote it 5 centuries ago, and the world has been trying to forget it ever since. The law is this: a prince who is not always at war is already defeated. Read that again. Not sometimes at war, not prepared for war, always at war. This is not a call to violence. This is a call to clarity. War, as Machiavelli understood it, is not bloodshed. War is the continuous, strategic advancement of your position. War is the refusal to stagnate. War is the understanding that in every domain of life, career, finances, relationships, health, reputation, you are either expanding or you are being conquered. There is no neutral ground. The person who taught you to seek peace was not your friend. They were creating a casualty. They were manufacturing a civilian in a world that only respects sovereigns. You have spent years planning, strategizing, waiting. This ends now. What follows is not motivation. Motivation is for amateurs who need to feel good before they act. This is a military briefing. This is the blueprint for treating 2026 not as a year to survive, but as a theater of operations to dominate. The comfortable will call this extreme. Let them. Their opinion is the opinion of the already defeated. You are here because something in you knows the truth. The life you want exists on the other side of a war you have been too afraid to declare. Consider this your declaration. You have been programmed, not through force, through something far more effective, comfort. Since childhood, you have been fed a doctrine. Work hard, then rest. Find balance. You deserve peace. Take care of yourself. These phrases sound wise, they feel nurturing, and they are engineering your defeat. Understand the mechanism. When a population seeks peace above all else, that population becomes manageable, predictable, docile. A society of peace seekers is a society of consumers, not creators, followers, not leaders, employees, not owners. This is not conspiracy. This is economics. The system does not need you powerful. The system needs you comfortable enough to comply and anxious enough to consume. And so you were taught that ambition is exhausting, that rest is the reward, that the goal of life is to reach a place where nothing threatens you, nothing challenges you, and nothing demands anything of you. But here is the biological truth they never told you. You are not designed for peace. You are designed for purpose. The human organism does not thrive in stasis. It atrophies. This is not philosophy. This is physiology. Muscles that are not challenged deteriorate. Neural pathways that are not exercised weaken. Ambition that is not acted upon curdles into resentment. You have felt this. the strange depression that arrives when life is fine, the anxiety that grows not from problems but from the absence of meaningful struggle, the quiet desperation of a Sunday evening when you realize another week passed and nothing changed. That is not a malfunction. That is your warrior architecture screaming for activation. You were built for campaigns. You were built to conquer territory, mental, physical, financial, spiritual. You were built to expand. And every day you choose peace over expansion, a part of you dies. Meanwhile, there are others who understood this long ago. While you were recovering from the work week, they were compounding. While you were finding balance, they were finding leverage. While you were telling yourself you deserve rest, they were telling themselves they deserve everything they have the capacity to take. These are not villains. These are realists. And they are eating your future one comfortable evening at a time. Let us conduct an honest audit. You may already be a casualty, not of a war you fought and lost, but of a war you never realized was being waged. Here are the symptoms. Your life is shaped by what happens to you, not by what you make happen. You wake up and respond to emails, requests, obligations. You put out fires, you manage crises. You are busy, but you are not advancing. A general does not wait for the enemy to dictate the battle. A general chooses the terrain, the timing, the terms of engagement. Ask yourself, when was the last time you dictated the terms of your own life? Open your calendar. Look at the next 30 days. How much of that time is allocated to your campaign, your expansion, your conquest, and how much belongs to someone else's agenda? If others control your time, others control your life. There is no negotiation here. There is no nuance. Time is the only non-renewable resource, and you are donating yours to causes that will never return the investment. You have goals. Of course you do. You have written them in journals, spoken them to friends, thought about them in the shower, and that is precisely where they remain. A plan is a wish with structure. A campaign is a plan with violence, the violence of total commitment, resource allocation, and timeline enforcement. You do not need more plans. You need fewer plans executed with the ferocity of someone whose survival depends on their completion. Because, in the ways that matter, it does. The casualty is always busy but never advancing. There is a critical distinction between motion and movement. Motion is activity. Movement is displacement, the measurable change in position from one point to another. You can be in constant motion and remain in the exact same place. Running on a treadmill is motion. Running toward a destination is movement. Most people are sprinting on treadmills, exhausted and stationary, wondering why the scenery never changes. History has performed this experiment thousands of times. The results are always the same. Empire rises through conquest. Empire chooses peace. Empire falls. There is no exception. Rome did not fall to a stronger enemy. Rome fell to itself, to the slow rot of comfort, to the assumption that the wars were over, to the fatal belief that what was built would maintain itself. At its peak, Rome was a war machine, not merely in military terms, but in cultural ones. The Roman identity was expansion. Every citizen understood themselves as part of an advancing force. The roads, the aqueducts, the laws, all were instruments of conquest. Then came peace, the Pax Romana celebrated by historians as a golden age. 200 years of relative stability, trade flourished, art blossomed, and the warrior spirit died. Within generations, Romans no longer knew how to fight. They hired mercenaries, foreigners with no loyalty to the empire to do the conquering they had forgotten how to do themselves. They taxed productivity to fund leisure. They confused wealth with power. The barbarians who eventually sacked Rome were not superior. They were simply awake. They were still in war mode while Rome slept in the delusion of permanent peace. This pattern repeats. The Ottoman Empire, the Spanish Empire, the British Empire, every Chinese dynasty, every caliphate. The moment expansion stops, decay begins. And this is not merely the fate of nations, it is the fate of individuals. The man who stops growing begins dying. The career that stops advancing begins declining. The relationship that stops deepening begins dissolving. The mind that stops challenging itself begins deteriorating. There is no such thing as holding your position. There is only advance or retreat. The universe does not permit stasis. You are not an empire, but you are a sovereign territory of one. Your mind, your body, your finances, your relationships, your reputation, your time. And that territory is either expanding under your command or being conquered by forces you refuse to acknowledge. The comfort you seek is not a reward. It is a siege. It is the slow encirclement of everything you could become by the enemy called good enough. Rome did not see its fall coming. The Romans believed they had won. They believed the wars were over. They believed peace was permanent. They were wrong. And every morning you wake up without a campaign, you make the same mistake. The question is not whether you are at war. The question is whether you know it. Before we proceed, you must understand who gave us this weapon. Niccolò Machiavelli was not a villain. He was not a psychopath. He was not the architect of evil that centuries of propaganda have made him out to be. He was something far more dangerous. He was a man who saw clearly. Born in Florence in 1469, Machiavelli came of age in the most treacherous political environment in European history. Renaissance Italy was not the romantic land of art and enlightenment your education suggested. It was a war zone. City-states betrayed each other monthly. Alliances formed and dissolved before the ink dried. Popes commanded armies. Bankers controlled kings. Assassination was a standard political tool. In this crucible, Machiavelli served as a diplomat and military strategist for the Florentine Republic. For 14 years, he navigated this landscape of perpetual treachery. He met with kings, popes, and warlords. He witnessed the rise and fall of Cesare Borgia, a man who conquered through brilliance and fell through a single moment of weakness. He watched good men destroyed because they believed in honor. He watched ruthless men thrive because they understood reality. Then, in 1512, his world collapsed. The Medici family returned to power in Florence. Machiavelli, associated with the previous republic, was arrested. He was accused of conspiracy. He was tortured. His shoulders were dislocated on the strappado, a device that hoisted prisoners by their bound wrists until their arms separated from their sockets. He confessed nothing, because there was nothing to confess. He was eventually released, but his career was over. Exiled to a small farm outside Florence, the man who had advised rulers was now nothing, powerless, forgotten, and it was there, in that exile, that he wrote The Prince. Understand this. The Prince was not written by a man theorizing about power from a comfortable distance. It was written by a man who had wielded power, lost power, and was desperate to understand why. Every sentence in that book is soaked in blood, his own and others. This is why it endures. This is why, 5 centuries later, it still disturbs. Machiavelli did not write what power should be. He wrote what power is, and the world has never forgiven him for it. The Catholic Church banned his works. The term Machiavellian became synonymous with evil. His name became a slur. Why? Because he committed the unforgivable sin. He told the truth about how humans actually behave. He revealed that those who rule do not rule through virtue alone. He exposed the machinery of power that every leader uses but no leader admits to. He tore the curtain down and showed the audience that the wizard was just a man pulling levers. The comfortable classes could not allow this knowledge to spread. If the masses understood how power truly worked, they might use it themselves. So they buried him under the label of evil. But the rulers themselves, the kings, the presidents, the CEOs, the conquerors, they kept his book on their nightstands. Napoleon carried the prince into every campaign. Frederick the Great publicly condemned it while privately studying it. Every modern leader who has achieved anything significant has read Machiavelli, and most will never admit it. The law we examine today comes from this man. A man who was tortured for his service, exiled for his loyalty, and condemned for his honesty. He paid for this wisdom in suffering. The least you can do is listen. In The Prince, and more extensively in his discourses on Livy, Machiavelli articulates a principle that modern self-improvement culture has systematically ignored. A prince who is not always at war is already defeated. This is not metaphor, this is mechanics. Let us decode this precisely. A prince. Machiavelli uses this term not merely for hereditary royalty, but for anyone who holds sovereignty, anyone who commands territory, resources, or followers. In modern terms, a prince is anyone who refuses to be ruled by others, anyone who has claimed dominion over their own life. This includes you, or at least it should, who is not always at war. Here is where the modern mind resists. We have been trained to see war as failure, as the breakdown of diplomacy, the last resort of the incompetent. Machiavelli saw differently. War, in the Machiavellian sense, is not violence. War is strategic engagement with reality. War is the continuous exertion of force, mental, economic, political, social, to advance your position and prevent others from diminishing it. The opposite of war is not peace. The opposite of war is negligence, the failure to engage, the assumption that your current position will maintain itself without effort. This is the delusion that destroys, is already defeated. Not will be defeated, not might be defeated, is already defeated. The moment you stop advancing, your defeat is not a future possibility, it is a present reality. You simply have not yet witnessed the consequences. The decay is already occurring, the erosion has already begun, the enemies you refuse to acknowledge are already at work. You are defeated, you just do not know it yet. Machiavelli understood that the sovereign fights not one war but 3 simultaneous wars. Failure in any one means eventual failure in all. The first is the war of territory. This is the most obvious, the war for resources, position, and material influence. In the modern context, this includes your career advancement, your financial position, your market share if you own a business, your physical assets and security, your access to opportunity. Every day, territory is being redistributed. Markets shift. Companies downsize. Industries transform. Wealth concentrates. If you are not actively expanding your territory, your skills, your income streams, your professional position, you are losing ground. Not to malice, to mathematics, others are advancing. The pie is not growing as fast as the ambition around you. Standing still is falling behind. The second is the war of reputation. Machiavelli famously wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. But what he emphasized even more is that perception often matters more than reality. A prince with a reputation for strength rarely has to demonstrate it. A prince with a reputation for weakness is perpetually tested. Your reputation is under constant assault. Every interaction shapes how others perceive you. Every failure to set boundaries diminishes your authority. Every time you accept disrespect, you advertise that disrespect is acceptable. Every promise unkept erodes trust that took years to build. You do not control what people think of you, but you absolutely control the evidence you provide. The war of reputation is fought through consistency, through demonstrated competence, through the refusal to be treated as less than you are, and it is fought every single day, whether you show up for battle or not. The third is the war of self. This is the war Machiavelli discussed least explicitly but understood most deeply. The greatest threat to any sovereign is not external enemies, it is internal decay, complacency, self-deception, rationalization, addiction, fear masked as prudence, laziness disguised as waiting for the right moment. You can defeat every external enemy and still be conquered by the enemy within. This war is fought against the part of you that seeks comfort over growth. The voice that tells you tomorrow when the answer is now, the identity attached to your limitations, the fear that success might actually be possible and what that would demand. The war of self is the foundation. Lose this war, and victory in the other two becomes impossible. Win this war, and the other two become matters of execution. Let us be absolutely clear. Nothing in this philosophy requires violence. Nothing demands cruelty. Nothing suggests you must harm others to advance yourself. That is the caricature of Machiavelli, the distortion spread by those who feared his ideas. The Machiavellian definition of war is simply this: the continuous, strategic exertion of force to achieve and maintain your objectives. Continuous means not occasional, not when you feel like it, not when crisis forces your hand, every day, without exception. Strategic means not random effort, not undirected energy, calculated, purposeful, aimed at specific outcomes with clear understanding of cause and effect. Exertion of force means not passive hoping, not wishful thinking. Actual deployment of your resources, time, attention, money, relationships, energy toward defined targets. To achieve and maintain means not just acquisition, maintenance. What you conquer, you must hold. What you build, you must defend. This is war. And when defined this way, you realize something uncomfortable. Everything is already war. Your job interview was a war. Someone won the position, others lost it. Your salary negotiation was a war. The company sought to pay less. You sought to receive more. Someone won. Your relationship dynamics are a war, not against your partner, but for respect, consideration, and the balance of investment. The attention economy is a war. Every app, every platform, every advertisement is attempting to conquer your focus, your most valuable asset. The question was never whether you would participate in war. The question is whether you would acknowledge it. Because here is what Machiavelli understood that the comfortable refuse to see. You can choose not to fight. You cannot choose not to be in the battle. The battle is happening. The only variable is whether you are a combatant or a casualty. The peaceful man believes he has opted out of conflict. In reality, he has simply opted out of victory. He will still experience defeat. He will still lose territory, reputation, and pieces of himself to forces he refuses to name. He will just convince himself it was fate, bad luck, or unfairness, rather than the predictable consequence of his own refusal to engage. Machiavelli saw these men. He watched them lose everything while congratulating themselves on their virtue. And he wrote his book so that you would not join them. The lost law is not a call to become something inhuman. It is a call to become fully human, to reclaim the part of yourself that was built to strive, to conquer, to expand. The part that society medicated, distracted, and shamed into silence. The warrior is not separate from you. The warrior is you before you were taught to apologize for your own ambition. Machiavelli did not invent this truth. He merely refused to look away from it. Now it is your turn to decide. Will you keep pretending the war is not real, or will you finally pick up your sword? Two humans can face the identical circumstance and experience entirely different realities. One sees obstacle, the other sees opportunity. One asks how to survive, the other asks how to conquer. This is not positive thinking. This is not mindset rhetoric. This is the difference between two fundamentally different psychological operating systems. The first operating system is civilian mode. The civilian operates from a paradigm of scarcity and preservation. The primary directive is survival, avoid loss, minimize risk, maintain current position. The civilian mind asks, how do I get through this? How do I avoid making enemies? What is the safest path? How do I not lose what I have? These questions are not irrational. In many contexts, they are prudent. But when they become your default orientation, they guarantee a life of quiet diminishment. The civilian is always bracing for impact, always preparing for things to go wrong, always scanning for threats while remaining blind to opportunities. The civilian negotiates when they should command, apologizes when they should assert, waits when they should advance. And most critically, the civilian believes that if they are good enough, harmless enough, agreeable enough, the world will reward them with safety. This is the foundational lie of civilian psychology. The world does not reward the harmless. The world consumes them. The second operating system is warrior mode. The warrior operates from a paradigm of sovereignty and expansion. The primary directive is not mere survival but conquest, the continuous advancement of position, capability, and influence. The warrior mind asks, how do I dominate this situation? What advantage can I extract from this obstacle? Who must I become to win this war? What territory can I claim while others hesitate? The warrior does not hope for favorable circumstances. The warrior creates favorable circumstances. The warrior understands that the environment will not adjust to accommodate their preferences, so they must either adjust themselves or adjust the environment. The warrior is not reckless. True warriors are profoundly strategic. They do not fight every battle, they select their battles with precision, but they are always in war mode, always scanning for opportunity, always positioning, always ready. Here is the neurological difference. When the civilian encounters a threat, the amygdala dominates. Fight or flight engages. Cortisol floods the system. The prefrontal cortex, the center of strategic thinking, goes partially offline. The civilian reacts from fear, not strategy. When the warrior encounters the same threat, training and orientation allow the prefrontal cortex to remain engaged. The threat is assessed, categorized, and responded to, not reacted to. The warrior experiences the same physiological stress, but metabolizes it differently. This is not genetic. This is not innate. This is trained. The warrior mind is not something you are born with. It is something you build through deliberate practice, through chosen hardship, through the systematic rejection of the civilian mindset that society installed in you without your consent. You are not choosing between two different people, you are choosing between two different versions of yourself. One version will live and die in the cubicle, metaphorical or literal, comfortable enough to stay, not fulfilled enough to feel alive. The other version will claim territory that the first version was too afraid to even see. The operating system you run determines the life you live. Choose. Even the warrior, if they abandon war for too long, begins to decay. Peace does not merely pause your progress. Peace actively degrades your capacity. The longer you remain in peacetime psychology, the more profound the damage. Here are the 5 weaknesses that peacetime installs in your operating system. The first weakness is comfort addiction. The human brain is an adaptation machine. It adjusts to whatever conditions it experiences consistently. Expose it to consistent comfort, and it recalibrates. What was once luxury becomes baseline. What was once baseline becomes intolerable. This is the neurological trap. Each day you choose ease, you raise the threshold for what feels normal. Each day you avoid discomfort, you lower your capacity to endure it. Within months, you cannot function without conditions that would have once seemed excessive. You require perfect temperature, perfect convenience, perfect circumstances, or your performance collapses. The comfort addict cannot launch the business because the conditions are not perfect, cannot pursue the relationship because rejection might sting, cannot change careers because the transition period would be uncomfortable. They have become prisoners of their own standards. Meanwhile, those who maintained their tolerance for discomfort move freely through circumstances that paralyze the addict. This is not discipline as punishment. This is discipline as liberation. The second weakness is conflict aversion. Peace teaches you that conflict is failure. If a conversation becomes tense, you have done something wrong. If a negotiation becomes adversarial, you should have been more accommodating. If someone is upset with you, you must repair it immediately, regardless of whether their upset is legitimate. This programming makes you exploitable. The conflict-averse person accepts unfavorable terms to avoid difficult conversations, allows boundaries to be violated rather than enforce them, surrenders positions they should hold because holding them requires confrontation, interprets all disagreement as relationship damage rather than natural negotiation. Here is the truth they cannot see. Conflict is not the opposite of relationship. Conflict is the mechanism by which relationships are defined. Every relationship you have is shaped by the conflicts you were willing or unwilling to engage. The boundaries you enforced, the lines you held, the moments you said no and meant it. Those who avoid all conflict do not have peaceful relationships. They have undefined relationships where their role is to accommodate and the other's role is to demand. The third weakness is time blindness. Peace creates the illusion of infinite time. When you are not at war, urgency disappears. There is always tomorrow, always next month, always next year. The campaign can begin after this obligation, after this season, after this period of rest. This is a lethal miscalculation. You do not have infinite time. You do not even have guaranteed time. The average human lifespan is approximately 4,000 weeks. You have already spent a significant percentage, and the weeks remaining are not uniformly valuable. Energy, health, and opportunity concentrate in finite windows that do not return. Time blindness manifests as perpetual postponement of meaningful action, inability to feel genuine urgency about goals, the repeated experience of years passing with minimal progress. The quiet shock of realizing a decade vanished into maintenance. The warrior does not have this problem. The warrior operates with acute awareness of mortality, not as morbid obsession, but as strategic clarity. When you know the war will not last forever, you stop wasting ammunition on irrelevant skirmishes. The fourth weakness is external dependency. Peacetime teaches you to rely on systems, institutions, and the goodwill of others for your security. Your income depends on your employer's continued approval. Your housing depends on your ability to keep paying an ever-increasing rent. Your social standing depends on maintaining favor with a network that could shift at any moment. You have built your life on rented ground. The externally dependent person is not secure. They are conditionally tolerated. Their stability persists only so long as external forces allow it to persist. When the company downsizes, they have no alternative income streams. When the relationship ends, they have no independent social infrastructure. When the market shifts, they have no adaptable skills. They have optimized for a world that remains static. And the world is never static. The warrior builds internal sovereignty, skills that cannot be revoked, resources under direct control, capabilities that persist regardless of external circumstances. Not because they expect catastrophe, because they refuse to be a casualty if catastrophe arrives. The fifth weakness is dream hoarding. This is perhaps the most insidious weakness of all. The peacetime mind does not abandon dreams. That would be too obviously tragic. Instead, it hoards them. The dream remains alive technically. It is spoken of occasionally. It is protected from criticism. It is kept safe in the future, where it can remain perfect and untested. The dream hoarder collects goals but executes none, researches endlessly but commits never, protects the dream from the risk of attempting it, derives identity from what they plan to become rather than what they are becoming. Here is the dark truth. The unexecuted dream is not a dream. It is a coping mechanism. It is the story you tell yourself to tolerate the gap between who you are and who you know you could be. As long as the dream exists somewhere in the future, you can believe you are still on track, but you are not on track. You are stationary, holding a ticket to a train you will never board. The warrior does not hoard dreams. The warrior tests dreams against reality, against resistance, against the possibility of failure, because a dream that cannot survive contact with reality was never worth having. Now we must go deeper. Everything we have discussed, the warrior mindset, the rejection of peacetime weakness, requires something that modern psychology has pathologized: your aggression. You have been taught that aggression is wrong, that it is primitive, that evolved, intelligent, moral people have transcended it. This is not wisdom. This is amputation. Carl Jung understood what the modern self-help industry refuses to admit. You do not become whole by rejecting parts of yourself. You become whole by integrating them. The shadow, in Jungian psychology, is the repository of everything you have been taught to reject about yourself. Your anger, your ambition, your capacity for dominance, your willingness to impose your will on the world. When you reject these qualities, they do not disappear, they go underground, they fester, and they emerge in distorted forms. The person who rejects their anger becomes passive-aggressive. The person who rejects their ambition becomes resentful of others' success. The person who rejects their capacity for dominance becomes a doormat and secretly fantasizes about revenge. This is the danger of the nice person. The genuinely integrated person, the one who has accepted their capacity for darkness and chosen how to channel it, is predictable, stable, trustworthy in their danger. The nice person, the one who has merely suppressed their shadow, is unpredictable. The pressure builds, the suppression fails, and when it fails catastrophically. Machiavelli and Jung, separated by centuries, understood the same truth. The goal is not to eliminate your capacity for war. The goal is to master it. The integrated warrior acknowledges their aggression and directs it purposefully, feels their ambition and channels it toward worthy campaigns, recognizes their capacity for ruthlessness and restrains it through choice, not repression, is dangerous, and precisely because they know it, they are controlled. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote that a prince must know how to be a beast as well as a man, not that you should become a beast, that you should have access to the beast when circumstances demand it. The warrior who cannot be ruthless when ruthlessness is required is not virtuous. They are simply ineffective, and their ineffectiveness will be exploited by those with fewer scruples. Integration is not becoming a monster. Integration is ensuring that when you face a monster, you have something monstrous enough within you to respond. You were not born to be harmless. You were born to be dangerous, and to choose, deliberately and consciously, what you do with that danger. The world does not need more harmless people. The world is full of them, and they have changed nothing. The world needs people who have confronted their capacity for darkness and emerged sovereign over it, people who could destroy and choose to build instead, people who could dominate and choose to lead instead, people who could hurt and choose to protect instead. This is the warrior who has integrated the shadow. Not a saint, not a monster, something far more useful, a weapon that aims itself. Theory is worthless without application. You now understand the psychology. You understand the historical precedent. You understand the internal architecture required. Now look around you. The wars are not hypothetical. They are not metaphorical. They are happening in the office you sit in, the market you participate in, the relationships you navigate, the attention you give away without compensation. You are already bleeding. You simply have not identified the wounds. Your position is under siege in the career war. This is not pessimism. This is market reality. Automation eliminates roles monthly. Artificial intelligence renders entire skill categories obsolete. Companies optimize ruthlessly, and loyalty is not a variable in their equations. The person who believes their job is secure because they perform well has not understood the game. Performance is necessary but insufficient. You are not evaluated merely on output. You are evaluated on perceived indispensability, political positioning, and alignment with whoever holds power this quarter. While you focus on your work, others focus on their positioning. While you trust that merit will be recognized, others ensure their contributions are visible to decision makers. While you wait to be promoted, others engineer their promotions. This is not cynicism. This is observation. The career war rewards those who acknowledge its existence and punishes those who pretend it is a meritocracy. Your questions should be: who controls my advancement, and what do they actually value? What would happen to me if my company restructured tomorrow? Am I building transferable leverage, or am I accumulating non-transferable tenure? Who is competing for my next position, and what are they doing that I am not? If you cannot answer these questions with precision, you are not fighting the career war. You are its casualty. You are being conquered economically every single day in the financial war. Inflation erodes your purchasing power while you sleep. Every dollar you saved last year buys less this year. This is not accident, it is policy. Governments and central banks have determined that your stored wealth will diminish over time. Debt instruments are designed to keep you in perpetual obligation. Credit systems reward immediate consumption and punish delayed gratification. The entire financial infrastructure is optimized for one outcome, keeping you dependent on your next paycheck. Meanwhile, those who understand the financial war operate differently. They acquire assets that inflate alongside currency. They build income streams that compound rather than deplete. They use debt as a tool for leverage rather than a chain for consumption. They structure their finances for sovereignty, not survival. The financial war is not about getting rich. It is about achieving economic sovereignty, the state in which your survival does not depend on any single income source, employer, or circumstance. Without economic sovereignty, all other sovereignty is theoretical. You cannot speak freely if your speech can cost you your livelihood. You cannot take risks if failure means ruin. You cannot negotiate from strength if walking away means starvation. Money is not the goal. Money is ammunition, and you are currently unarmed. The attention war is the war you lose most consistently and notice least. Your attention is the most valuable resource you possess. It is finite. It is non-renewable within any given day. And it is the raw material from which every achievement, every relationship, every conquest is built. Without attention, you cannot think strategically. Without attention, you cannot execute consistently. Without attention, you cannot even perceive the other wars being waged against you. And your attention is under professional assault. Thousands of engineers, among the most intelligent humans alive, wake up every morning with a single objective: capture your focus and hold it hostage. They deploy variable reward schedules, social validation triggers, fear of missing out architectures, and infinite scroll mechanisms designed to hijack your dopamine system. They are not evil. They are effective, and you are their product. Every hour you spend in their capture is an hour you do not spend building your skills, advancing your campaigns, deepening your relationships, thinking strategically about your life. The average person loses 4 to 6 hours daily to attention capture systems. Multiply by 365, multiply by decades. You are not just wasting time, you are donating your life force to entities that give nothing meaningful in return. The attention war is the foundational war. Lose this war, and you lack the resources to fight any other. The relationship war is the war most will refuse to acknowledge. We want to believe that relationships, romantic, familial, professional, exist outside the domain of power. That love and friendship transcend strategy. That genuine connection requires the absence of tactical thinking. This is beautiful. It is also incomplete. Every relationship contains power dynamics. Who needs whom more? Who can walk away more easily? Who sets the terms of engagement? Who accommodates and who demands? This is not cynical. This is structural. Denying these dynamics does not eliminate them. It merely ensures you navigate them blindly while others navigate them with full awareness. The relationship war is not about manipulating those you love. It is about recognizing when you are being manipulated, maintaining boundaries that others may pressure you to abandon, ensuring that your investment is reciprocated proportionally, building relationships of mutual respect rather than one-sided dependency. The person who refuses to see power dynamics in relationships does not have purer relationships. They have relationships where they are consistently disadvantaged and they tell themselves it is love. The warrior loves deeply, but the warrior loves with open eyes. Ancient wars were won with steel and territory. Modern wars are won with different instruments. Master these weapons, or be defeated by those who do. Information is your artillery. The one who knows more wins. This has always been true. But in the information age, the asymmetry between the informed and the ignorant has become catastrophic. Those with superior information see opportunities invisible to others, anticipate threats before they materialize, make decisions with higher probability of success, identify weaknesses others cannot perceive. Information is not merely data. Information is actionable, intelligence, knowledge, processed, filtered, and aimed at specific strategic outcomes. Your systems for acquiring, processing, and deploying information determine your capacity to wage effective war. Ask yourself, what are your intelligence sources? How do you filter signal from noise? How quickly can you act on new information? If you do not have answers, you are fighting blind. Your network is your army. You cannot conquer alone. Every significant victory in human history was achieved through coalition, the assembly of complementary capabilities toward shared objectives. Your network is your army. Not in the sense of people who obey you, in the sense of people whose interests align with yours, whose capabilities complement yours, whose success is entangled with your own. The quality of your network determines the opportunities you hear about, the resources you can access, the credibility you can borrow, the support you receive under siege, the leverage you hold in negotiations. The person with a strong network is not stronger than you. They have access to collective strength that you do not. Building this weapon requires time, genuine value exchange, and strategic awareness of who can help you and whom you can help. Your skills are your armor. Markets shift, industries transform, specific knowledge becomes obsolete, but transferable. High-leverage skills persist. The ability to communicate persuasively, the ability to solve complex problems, the ability to learn rapidly, the ability to lead, the ability to negotiate, the ability to execute under pressure. These skills are your armor. They protect you across contexts, industries, and economic conditions. The question is not, what do I know? The question is, what can I do that the market will always pay for? Invest in skills that cannot be outsourced, automated, or made irrelevant. These are your permanent defensive fortifications. Your capital is your supply line. Armies do not lose wars because they lack courage. Armies lose wars because they run out of supplies. Your capital, financial reserves, liquid assets, accessible resources is your supply line. It determines how long you can sustain a campaign, survive a setback, and maintain pressure on an objective. Without adequate capital, you cannot take risks that require runway, you cannot survive the inevitable setbacks, you cannot invest in skill development or opportunity capture, you cannot negotiate from strength because you need the deal too badly. Capital is not luxury. Capital is strategic capacity, and building it must be treated as a military priority. Your reputation is your fortress. A strong reputation does not merely attract opportunity. A strong reputation repels attack. Those who might otherwise challenge you, undermine you, or test your boundaries will calculate the cost. If your reputation suggests that such attacks will be met with effective resistance and that the attacker's own reputation might suffer, the attack never comes. Reputation is built through consistent demonstration of competence, reliable follow-through on commitments, clear boundaries enforced without exception, strategic visibility of your capabilities and victories. This weapon takes years to build and moments to destroy. It cannot be rushed, but once established, it fights battles for you while you sleep. A final clarification is necessary. The wars we have described do not require enemies in the traditional sense. You do not need to hate anyone. You do not need to wish harm on anyone. But you must identify the forces you are contending against, not to destroy them but to navigate them effectively. Your opponents include institutions operating on incentives that do not align with your interests. Corporations optimizing for profit, not your well-being. Governments optimizing for control, not your freedom. Financial systems optimizing for extraction, not your prosperity. Your opponents include algorithms designed to capture, direct, and monetize your attention regardless of the cost to your agency. Your opponents include competitors pursuing the same positions, resources, and opportunities you seek. Not villains, simply other players in the same game. Your opponents include your former self, the version of you that was comfortable, complacent, and complicit in your own stagnation. This opponent knows all your weaknesses, all your rationalizations, all the lies you are willing to tell yourself. The opponent you cannot name is the opponent you cannot defeat. Make them visible. Study them. Understand their mechanisms and incentives, not with hatred, with clarity. The warrior does not need to despise the mountain to climb it. The warrior simply needs to see it accurately. Enough diagnosis. Enough philosophy. Enough understanding. You came here for a weapon. Here it is. What follows is not theory. It is operational doctrine, the specific protocols for converting 2026 from a year you survive into a campaign you conquer. Read this once for understanding. Then read it again for implementation. There are no shortcuts. There is only the work. The first principle is to declare war on your current life. Before any campaign can begin, there must be a formal commencement. This is not symbolic. This is psychological architecture. The mind does not shift from civilian to warrior mode through gradual drift. It shifts through decisive rupture, a clear demarcation between who you were and who you are becoming. The ancient generals understood this. Before battle, there were rituals, sacrifices, oaths. Not because the gods required them, but because the soldiers required them. The ritual marked the transition from ordinary life to extraordinary circumstance. You require the same. Take a blank page. At the top, write death certificate for your name, the civilian. Below, document everything that dies today. The version of you that waited for permission, the version that sought comfort over conquest, the version that planned endlessly and executed never, the version that accepted conditions they had the power to change, the version that confused busyness with progress. Be specific. Name the behaviors. Name the rationalizations. Name the fears that masqueraded as prudence. This is not journaling. This is execution. You are killing a version of yourself that no longer serves your campaign. Sign it. Date it. Keep it where you will see it when weakness returns. Then define the territory. A war without defined objectives is not a war. It is chaos. You must know precisely what you are conquering, not vague aspirations, specific, measurable territory. Answer these questions with brutal precision. What is the exact financial number, income, net worth, debt elimination you will achieve by the 31st of December 2026? Not more money. A number. What specific career position, project, or professional milestone will you hold? Not advancement. A title, a role, a measurable outcome. What will your body be capable of? What will you weigh, lift, run, or endure? Not get healthier. Metrics. What specific skill will you possess that you do not possess today? Not learn more. A demonstrable capability with a clear standard. What will be different about your key relationships? What boundaries will be established? What connections will be built or severed? Write these down. Make them concrete. Make them measurable. Make them undeniable, so that on the 31st of December 2026, you will know with certainty whether you won or lost. Ambiguity is the enemy of conquest. Destroy it. Then burn the ships. In 1519, Hernán Cortés landed in Mexico with 600 men to face an empire of millions. His first order was to destroy the ships. There would be no retreat, no backup plan, no comfortable return to the old life. Victory or death, those were the only options. You must identify your ships, the escape routes, the backup plans, the comfortable alternatives that allow you to avoid full commitment. These might include the safe job you keep while half pursuing your actual goal, the relationship you maintain because being alone feels scarier than being unfulfilled, the savings account earmarked for if this does not work out, the social circles that reward your mediocrity and would punish your transformation. Not all ships should be burned. This requires strategic judgment, but be honest. Which backup plans are genuinely prudent and which are simply permission to fail? The mind operates differently when retreat is impossible. Resources that were held in reserve become available. Creativity that was dormant activates. Commitment that was partial becomes total. Identify at least one ship to burn, then strike the match. The second principle is to build your war council. No sovereign conquers alone. Even the greatest generals required advisors, lieutenants, intelligence officers. The myth of the lone conqueror is propaganda designed to make you attempt alone what can only be achieved collectively. You need a war council, not a large network, not casual acquaintances, a small, deliberate assembly of individuals who serve specific strategic functions. The first role is the strategist. This is the long-term thinker, the person who sees patterns you miss, the one who asks what happens after you win this battle. The strategist prevents tactical victories that lead to strategic defeats. They see second and third order consequences. They question your assumptions and pressure test your plans. This might be a mentor, a coach, or simply a friend with demonstrated strategic capability. Ask yourself, who in my life consistently helps me see further than I can see alone? The second role is the scout. This is your intelligence source, the person embedded in environments you need to understand, the one who tells you what is actually happening, not what is officially claimed. The scout might have insight into your industry, your market, your social environment, or your competition. They provide information you cannot acquire yourself. Ask yourself, who has access to information I need but cannot directly obtain? The third role is the lieutenant. This is your accountability partner, but not in the weak, modern sense. This is someone who will confront you when you fail to execute. Someone who does not accept your rationalizations. Someone who respects you enough to tell you uncomfortable truths. The lieutenant checks your progress, calls out your deviations, and refuses to let you lie to yourself. Ask yourself, who in my life will not accept my excuses? The fourth role is the armorer. This is your skill developer, the teacher, trainer, or coach who builds your capabilities. The one who identifies your weaknesses and systematically eliminates them. The armorer might be a formal instructor or an informal mentor, but they must have demonstrated mastery in an area you need to develop and the ability to transfer that mastery to you. Ask yourself, who can teach me what I need to learn next? The fifth role is the chronicler. This might be the most overlooked role, and it might be filled by yourself. The chronicler documents the campaign: victories, defeats, lessons, observations. This documentation serves two functions: strategic learning and psychological motivation. When you are losing, the chronicle reminds you of past victories. When you are winning, it reminds you of past defeats that taught you how to win. Ask yourself, who is recording my progress? And if no one, why am I not? You may not have all 5 roles filled immediately. You may find one person who fills multiple roles. The point is not perfection, it is intention. Audit your current circle. Identify who serves these functions and who does not. Remove those who serve no strategic purpose and drain resources. Recruit those who can help you conquer. Your counsel determines your capacity. Choose accordingly. The third principle is the quarterly campaign model. Stop planning years. Years are too abstract. Years allow drift. Start planning conquests. The quarterly campaign model divides your year into 4 distinct 90-day operations. Each operation has a single primary objective. Each is treated as a self-contained war with clear victory conditions. 90 days is long enough to achieve meaningful results. It is short enough to maintain urgency. It is the optimal unit for human motivation and strategic adjustment. A year feels infinite. 90 days feels immediate. The structure of each campaign begins with week 1 for intelligence and planning. Define the single primary objective for this 90-day period. Identify the obstacles between current position and objective. Determine the resources required. Establish the specific metrics for victory. Create the week-by-week action sequence. Weeks 2 through 12 are for offensive operations. Execute the plan with total focus. Conduct weekly assessment and adjustment. Maintain the single objective focus. Do not dilute with secondary targets. Week 13 is for after-action review. Assess victory or defeat honestly. Document lessons learned. Prepare intelligence for the next campaign. The most important rule is one primary objective. The most common failure in personal campaigns is objective dilution. The ambitious person wants to conquer everything simultaneously: career advancement and physical transformation, and new skill acquisition and relationship repair and financial restructuring. This is how campaigns fail. Concentration of force is not merely military doctrine. It is physics. Energy dispersed achieves nothing. Energy concentrated breaks through. Each 90-day campaign gets one primary objective. Secondary objectives may be maintained, but they do not receive primary resources. They are holding actions, not advances. Choose the territory that matters most for the next 90 days. Conquer it. Then choose the next. The fourth principle is the daily battle protocol. Campaigns are won or lost in daily battles. The grand strategy means nothing if Tuesday is wasted. The 90-day plan collapses if individual days are surrendered to drift. You require a daily battle protocol, a structure that ensures every day advances the campaign. The first phase is the morning intelligence briefing. Allocate 30 to 60 minutes. Before any action, the general reviews the battlefield. Your morning briefing is not meditation, affirmation, or positive thinking. It is operational preparation. Review your objective. What is today's mission? How does it serve the 90-day campaign? Anticipate obstacles. What threats or distractions are likely today? How will you neutralize them? Confirm priorities. What are the 1 to 3 actions that would make today a victory? Everything else is secondary. Allocate resources. Where will your time and energy go? Decide in advance, not in the moment. The morning briefing is non-negotiable. It is the difference between directing your day and being directed by your day. Those who skip this step react to incoming demands. Those who execute this step respond from strategic positioning. The second phase is offensive operations during your primary working hours. This is where the campaign advances or stalls. Your working hours, however many you have, must be divided between offensive and maintenance activities. Offensive activities advance your position, high-leverage work on primary campaign objectives, skill development, strategic relationship building, asset creation, territory expansion. Maintenance activities hold your position, responding to communications, administrative tasks, routine obligations, defensive work that prevents loss but creates no gain. Most people spend 80% or more of their working time on maintenance. They fight defensively all day and wonder why they never advance. The protocol is offense before maintenance. Your highest energy hours go to offensive operations. Maintenance is handled in remaining time. If maintenance does not fit, it is delegated, automated, or eliminated. This is not easy. It requires boundary enforcement. It requires disappointing people who expect your maintenance to serve their priorities. Do it anyway. Your campaign depends on it. The third phase is the evening after action report. Allocate 15 to 30 minutes. The day does not end without assessment. Before the day closes, you conduct a brief after-action report. What was won? What offensive progress was made? What territory was gained? What was lost? Where did the day fail? What battles were lost? What resources were wasted? What was learned? What does today teach about tomorrow? What adjustments are required? This is not journaling. This is not gratitude practice. This is intelligence processing. The report feeds forward into tomorrow's briefing. Patterns emerge. Weaknesses become visible. The campaign optimizes through continuous feedback. Write it down. 3 minutes of documentation prevents 3 months of repeated mistakes. The fifth principle is the art of strategic retreat. One final principle, perhaps the most difficult. Not every battle can be won. Not every position can be held. Not every campaign will succeed. The warrior who cannot retreat is not brave. They are stupid, and their stupidity will cost them the war even when they might have won battles. Strategic retreat is not surrender. Surrender is the abandonment of objectives. Retreat is the repositioning of resources to achieve those objectives under better conditions. Know your withdrawal points in advance. Before any campaign begins, determine the conditions under which you would retreat. What level of loss is acceptable? What signals indicate the position is untenable? What is the line you will not cross? Deciding this in advance prevents two disasters: retreating too early out of fear and retreating too late out of pride. Preserve your forces. The purpose of retreat is preservation. A force that retreats in order survives to fight again. A force that fights to the last man achieves nothing but symbolic defeat. When you retreat from a campaign, a business venture that failed, a relationship that ended, a career path that closed, your objective is to preserve your capital, your reputation, your health, your key relationships, your core skills. What you lose in one battle should not cripple you for the next war. Retreat to better ground. Retreat is not aimless withdrawal. It is repositioning toward terrain that favors you. If a business fails, retreat toward the lessons learned and the relationships preserved. If a relationship ends, retreat toward self-development and clearer standards. If a career path closes, retreat toward transferable skills and new opportunities. Never retreat into victimhood. Never retreat into blame. These are the swamps where armies go to die. Retreat toward higher ground, toward strength, toward the next campaign. These are your weapons. The declaration of war, the war council, the quarterly campaign, the daily protocol, the art of retreat. Together, they form a complete system for transforming 2026 from a year you endure into a theater of operations you dominate. But systems do not execute themselves. You must pick them up. You must wield them. You must accept that the weight of sovereignty is heavier than the weight of servitude and carry it anyway. The blueprint is complete. The question is whether you will use it. We arrive at the end. But endings are illusions. There is no final victory. There is no moment where the war concludes and permanent peace descends. There is only the next campaign, and the next, and the next, until there is not. This is what the civilian never understands. They believe there is a finish line, a point of arrival, a place where they can finally rest and enjoy the fruits of their labor without further exertion. This place does not exist. The warrior knows this and is liberated by it. Because if the war never ends, then you are never required to become something other than what you are becoming. You are never forced to abandon the identity that makes you vital, dangerous, alive. The warrior does not fight in order to stop fighting. The warrior fights because fighting strategic, purposeful, directed engagement with reality is the highest expression of being human. Peace is not the goal, mastery is the goal. And peace, true peace, unshakable peace, is merely the byproduct of becoming so formidable that nothing dares challenge you. This is the paradox Machiavelli understood, the paradox that Christ articulated when he said he came not to bring peace, but a sword, the paradox the Stoics encoded in their doctrine. The one who is always prepared for war is the one who rarely has to fight. The weak are tested constantly. Their boundaries are probed, their resources are targeted, their position is challenged by anyone who senses opportunity. The strong are left alone, not because the world is kind, but because the world is efficient. Predators seek the easiest prey. They do not waste resources on targets that will cost more than they yield. Become expensive to attack. Become formidable in your capabilities, your networks, your resources, your reputation. And watch how many battles resolve themselves before they begin. Let us be clear about what you are not being asked to become. You are not being asked to become cruel. Cruelty is weakness, the inability to achieve objectives without unnecessary destruction. You are not being asked to become cold. Coldness is disconnection, and the disconnected cannot lead, inspire, or build. You are not being asked to abandon compassion. Compassion, strategically deployed, is one of the most powerful weapons in existence. You are being asked to become complete, to integrate the parts of yourself that you were taught to reject, to reclaim the aggression, the ambition, the territorial instinct that society told you was shameful. Not to become a monster, to become someone capable of monstrosity who chooses otherwise. This is the only goodness that matters. The goodness of the strong, the goodness that could dominate but decides to protect, the goodness that could take but chooses to build. The harmless are not good. They are merely incapable of evil. There is no virtue in incapacity. So, here is your creed, the words you will carry into 2026 and beyond. Memorize them, internalize them. Let them become the operating system that replaces the civilian programming you are shedding. I am not at peace. I am at war. Not because I hate the world, but because I refuse to be conquered by it. I do not wait for conditions to improve. I improve my conditions. The environment will not adjust to my preferences. I will adjust the environment, or I will adjust myself. I do not seek permission. I seek territory. My expansion does not require approval from those who benefit from my stagnation. I do not confuse motion with movement. Activity without advancement is a treadmill. I measure progress in position gained, not energy spent. I do not hoard dreams. I test them against reality, against resistance, against the possibility that they might fail and that I might have to forge better ones. I do not retreat into victimhood. When I lose forward toward lessons, toward strength, toward the next campaign. I do not require the world to be fair. I require myself to be formidable. Fairness is a concept for those who cannot win without it. I am building sovereignty, not security. Security is dependency on conditions outside my control. Sovereignty is the capacity to thrive regardless of conditions. I am integrating my shadow, not suppressing it. My darkness is not my enemy. My darkness, consciously wielded, is my weapon. I am not becoming someone else. I am becoming myself. The self I was before fear taught me to be small, the self that was always there, waiting for permission to emerge. This is not a video you watched. This is a briefing you received. The difference is what you do in the next 24 hours. The civilian will close this video and feel momentarily inspired. They will tell themselves they will start the campaign tomorrow, next week, after the holidays. When conditions are right, they will return to the treadmill. They will continue to be conquered by forces they refuse to name. They will die with their dreams still in storage, perfectly preserved, never tested. The warrior will close this video and begin. Not perfectly, not with complete readiness, not with all conditions optimized. They will begin anyway. Because the warrior understands what the civilian never will. There is no readiness. There is only the war. You enter it prepared, or you enter it unprepared, but you are entering it regardless. The only choice is whether you enter as combatant or casualty. 2026 is not a year. It is a theater of operations. 12 months, 4 campaigns, 365 daily battles. You will not win all of them. You are not required to win all of them. You are required to fight all of them, to show up, to engage, to refuse the comfortable surrender that the world is offering you with both hands. The harmless will call you extreme. Let them. Their opinion is the opinion of the already defeated. The comfortable will say, you are taking life too seriously. Let them. They will spend their lives being taken by those who are serious. The world will offer you 1,000 reasons to stand down. Slow down, calm down, decline the offer. You have been briefed. You have the philosophy. You have the psychology. You have the blueprint. All that remains is the doing. And that the doing is something no video, no book, no mentor can do for you. It happens in the silence after the screen goes dark. In the moment you choose to write the death certificate or return to the couch. In the decision to send the message, make the call, burn the ship, build the council, launch the campaign. It happens when no one is watching. It happens when you alone know whether you advanced or retreated. The world does not reward the harmless. The universe does not applaud the comfortable. History does not remember the peaceful, only what the warriors built and what the warriors destroyed. You were not born to be a footnote. You were not designed to be a casualty. You were built for this, for the war, for the conquest, for the campaign that only you can wage. So stop planning, stop preparing, stop waiting for permission from a world that will never give it. Start conquering. A prince who is not always at war is already defeated. Wake up.